Hey, what's going on, guys? Joe,
Kevin, hello.
we're back with another pod today. Going to talk about some movies, some TV, what's new in the world.
Yeah, kind of catch up on what we've been watching recently and what our thoughts are on it, and hopefully catch some of yours as well. Do you agree, disagree? There are things we should be watching but aren't, that are new and exciting that you're finding. Because I think we can all agree that with 9 million streaming services and with what's in theaters and what's on network and extra paid television, it's hard to keep up on everything right now. There's so much good content right now that, I mean, you really have to be diligent about kind of catching everything.
It's almost like a version of Game of Thrones, all these streaming services. Who's going to end up on the Iron Throne?
Yeah, exactly. Playing whack-a-mole, trying to chase around the good shows.
Yeah.
Like, what are you watching? I'm watching, blah, blah, blah on Hulu. I'm like, I don't have Hulu. Yeah. I just have Apple Plus TV, HBO Max, and Disney.
I had to give the axe to a few streaming services myself. I think Paramount is next for me, unfortunately.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, a little itty bitty tiny show has been out recently. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. Better Call Saul.
Yeah, I am caught up now on Better Call Saul. I hadn't seen all of season 5 until Netflix released it a week or two ago.
Shout out to Netflix.
Finished up season 5 and then caught the 2-part premiere this week, or last week, I guess, on AMC. For those of you out there who have not been watching Better Call Saul,
that's me. I'm one of them.
I highly recommend this show. I was skeptical at first because like many people, I'm a huge fan of Breaking Bad. And so I feel like a lot of people have seen Breaking Bad but didn't jump over to Better Call Saul for a number of reasons. One, it was a minor character. 2, it's a prequel, and prequel is very often a kiss of death for a show or a movie. Like, a prequel.
Sure. Yeah.
So, because typically for me, and I think you agree with this, prequels feel like money grabs and nothing else.
It kind of ruins how you see like the property itself. Like, you're like, this is just unnecessary backstory, and so it changes the way you see like that character in a show. Or
100% agree. This one, Vince Gilligan, who is a genius, is the showrunner.
Yeah.
And this one actually is very compelling. It follows minor characters. The two. I mean, there's a lot of characters. Gus Fring's in it. Tuco Salamanca's in it. A lot of the Breaking Bad characters, and we know how they end up. Are on the show. But it does a couple other things. One, it introduces other characters you care about that aren't on Breaking Bad. So you're kind of like, why do these people disappear from Saul's world?
Yeah.
It takes place in Albuquerque where Breaking Bad is, but these characters aren't around. Does that mean they're still in town but have cut, Saul out of their lives? Are they dead? Did they leave town?
There's more room for expansion, I guess.
Sure.
If you really want to break it down that way.
Right. And the show really follows 2 people and on 2 different storylines. Saul on his journey, of Jimmy McGill, his actual name, into becoming the Saul that we know in Breaking Bad, and a character that everyone seems to love, including me, Mike Ehrmantraut, the old ex-cop henchman, and kind of his path from just being an old retired policeman into this world of crime that he finds himself in.
He's a great character actor. I always love seeing him.
Great character. You root for him, and even in this show does a great job in you're rooting for him, even though you know what's going to happen to him, even though you know, just like with so many other people, his life is going to be destroyed by a guy who, during the show, is off somewhere teaching high school chemistry in town.
Old Walter.
He's like, all these people are having all of these, conflicts and engagements. Like, Walter White is going to come along and destroy all of these people. Either on purpose or inadvertently destroy all of these people.
And, I need to finish the show. I've seen the first season. I'm a binger. We were having this conversation earlier. I like to watch everything just kind of at once.
Sure.
So, kind of intentionally have been avoiding it. Somehow, I have managed to avoid Better Call Saul spoilers. I'm going to knock on wood because now it's going to go all out the window now.
Oh, of course.
But I watched the first season when it first aired. I really liked it. I mean, I think you can agree that the tone is it's funnier than Breaking Bad.
but I still think it is just as serious, right?
Sure.
It's not it's not a throwaway. It's not a cheap knockoff.
Yeah.
Vince Gilligan clearly took this show very seriously as far as continuing on that Breaking Bad world. And
but when Bob Odenkirk is your lead, it's hard not to have.
Oh, it's funny. They're and Michael McKean is his brother.
What's the bit about the pie? He has to sit on a pie or something in the first season. He's like, I got you out of it, but the bad news.
Oh, the squat cobbler pie.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Yeah,
it's insane.
Yeah, it's a
deep cut there.
Yeah, but it's a fantastic show. And honestly, as it's gone on and as engaging and enthralling as the show is, I feel like, and I thought I would never say this, it's a stronger show than Breaking Bad was overall.
Wow.
Early on, that wasn't the case, right? Like it's kind of getting.
I enjoyed season 1. I thought that it fit in with the canon very, very well.
It did, but the show gets so much more engaging and so much stronger as it goes along. As you watch all these different characters take I think one thing it does better than Breaking Bad is you can follow Walt's downward spiral really well.
Sure.
Right? It's really well done. Yeah. In Better Call Saul, every character's downward spiral is just as good and compelling, right? They're like even peripheral characters who are kind of like, you're heading the wrong path. It's kind of like Walt's in that it is paced right and very believable and doesn't feel forced. None of them. There are half a dozen really important characters, at least in Better Call Saul, that break bad, and none of it feels forced or unrealistic. Okay. Which makes it such a strong show. It's not just Jimmy, it's everybody that goes wrong on that show.
I need to watch all of it then.
Yeah, it's great.
How many, so are they doing the whole 5A, 5B thing, or is it?
I'm not sure. This is season 6. This is the last one.
6?
Yeah, so there's 6 seasons of this. Okay. So it's actually longer than Breaking Bad. And this is the last season. I'm not sure how many episodes or how they're breaking it. Probably 10 because they all are.
So Breaking Bad technically is 5 seasons, I guess, but it's 5A, 5B. I just kind of consider it 6 seasons, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as length of seasons, I combine them because it was like 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, I think, something like that. No. It was 6 on the first season and 12 after that.
think the 5A and 5B was weird. There was more than one half than the other.
Oh, was there?
Like, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a long time since I've seen Breaking Bad.
That's when AMC used to split their shows up. They did the same thing with Mad Men, right? They would do like half a season, then a huge break, then the other half of the season.
Yeah. Walking Dead famously did that too.
Right.
However, Walking Dead, quality-wise, is not nowhere near Breaking Bad or Mad Men.
No, not at all. But yeah, it was when AMC was really stretching. They knew what their money makers were.
They're screwed. Once Better Call Saul is done, they're screwed.
Yeah, because because they haven't had a replacement for Mad Men on that level, and obviously Walking Dead isn't what it used to be.
David Chase back there or something, I mean, like, what are you gonna? I mean, because they've got like a million shows, I feel like, but they're all just kind of like fake. Like fake shows. They don't seem like they're real shows,
Yeah. But on your point of how you like to binge, for those of you out there who have not watched Better Call Saul, it is an like Breaking Bad, it is an incredibly bingeable show. It's hard to stop watching it. It's one of those shows that's like, well, one more episode. I know I need to go to bed, but one more episode.
Yeah, I think that's how it was when I actually binged the first season. Yeah, I think I watched it in like 2 days.
Yeah, 100%, right. So It's definitely a binge-worthy show for those of you who like to binge shows. I love to binge shows. If I have a day and I don't feel like doing anything and I want an excuse to not do anything, a bingeable TV show is a really good way to get out of doing anything productive.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the best.
So that's what I most recently watched and was on my mind. How about you? What's something that you recently watched that is kind of on the forefront of your brain?
Yeah, so as far as like new movies go or like stuff that's new and out right now, as I went and saw The Northman. It was between The Northman, Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I'm going to see later tonight, and then the Nicolas Cage movie, which eventually I will see.
Me too.
And we will talk about that.
We'll talk about Massive Talent at some point. Yeah,
that's a pod within itself. But The Northman, I thought looked amazing. I love Robert Eggers' films. I mean, have you seen The Witch or The Lighthouse?
Yeah, I've not seen The Lighthouse, and I know I need to.
The Witch is great. I always think The Witch is like a solid Halloween watch for me.
It is.
So I was pretty excited for this. I like Alexander Skarsgård, Ethan Hawke, like Willem Dafoe, huge cast, and boy, this movie was out there. Not necessarily in a bad way. I mean, it's just a very strange film. It's kind of like Gladiator meets Apocalypto meets some acid. It's pretty out there. It's very strange. And I know it's very like it's spiritual and it's seeped in Nordic mythology. And there's a lot going on in the film where you're like, what is happening? You're not quite sure, But it's, I mean, on a surface level, the action's great. It's a very good revenge thriller. You can tell it's very much inspired by, like, Hamlet.
Oh, okay.
And other, medieval revenge tales of that sort, And it's definitely a movie you need to see more than once. I feel like when I first left the theater, I was kind of mixed on it, to say the least. I was kind of like, what the hell did I just see? And like the more it's kind of like grown on me, I'm like, okay, I kind of enjoyed that film.
Sure. And it's interesting you call it mixed because when you look at the critical reviews, they aren't. Critics universally love this movie, which is one of the reasons I'm excited to see it. Yeah.
What I'm worried about is, so right now in theaters, obviously movies are back. There's a ton out right now. We named 3 movies right now that are original films that are not Marvel properties.
And we're heading into summer, right, where you can start seeing some of these big movies.
We talked about 2 movies last time that are like, pretty new movies that are, in theaters that are relevant and that are not Marvel films. The thing I'm worried about is I don't know if The Northman is going to make its money back because I don't know how accessible it is to a mainstream audience. It's a pretty different film,
Sure.
I encourage you guys to go see it because I think for more movies to be made that are like not necessarily like this, but are different and have big budgets and are like, fun adventures, we need to go see movies like this so studios see that there's a hunger for these kind of movies.
Well, do you know what the budget was on it?
It was $100 million. It was like $80 or $100 million.
Yeah, and we talked about, and I still haven't seen it, but there's one we talked about last week was Ambulance.
It's out of theaters now.
Right.
$8 million.
For as much as people are complaining that movie theaters are being taken over by these large budget sequel and comic book properties, and I don't argue that, the way to combat that, if you really want to, is to go see these mid to upper cost blockbuster films.
Eat your vegetables.
Yeah, you're upset that there's, and I'm not arguing with anybody about this. You don't want to only see Marvel movies or DCU movies or sequels. That's great. Then go see these other things that are coming out that people are taking chances on. Go see an Ambulance. Go see a Northman.
Everything Everywhere All at Once. Say that 3 times fast.
Or the Massive Talent movie.
Yeah.
These are mid-cost
I think the
movies.
Massive Talent movie is going to be the one that comes out on top because if you think about it, it's not a franchise IP, but it's something people like recognize and can understand.
Yeah, there's a nostalgia factor with it that has nothing to do with being a sequel.
Everybody knows who Nick Cage is,
right.
Whereas not everybody knows about even Everything Everywhere All at Once is getting really good reviews and box office wise I think it's doing well because it has the whole multiversal element to it.
Right, it's kind of
and that's relevant right now because of Marvel
linked to Marvel, right? Yeah.
Whereas the Northman, not everybody's necessarily into Nordic mythology.
Right. And when you look at the North mythology properties that have been done over recent years, they're generally very violent and very depressing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like that's a trope with them.
Is it History Channel that has the Vikings TV show?
Yeah, exactly.
I think that kind of opens the door for this, but this is not the same thing.
And I wouldn't suggest that it is.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like they're making another Pirates of the Caribbean movie that doesn't have Johnny Depp in it. Whatever. I jumped off that train a long time ago, so I don't really care.
Yeah.
But you also don't want people to be like, well, I'm not going to watch it because I didn't like the Johnny Depp movies. Yeah. Well, this might be a completely different thing.
It's its own thing, because if you think about it, like those movies are based off a theme park ride. So Jack Sparrow is just a made up character. You can easily make up another character for that universe. Right,
and I think we all know, kind of like Transformers and the Matrix movies, the sequels only exist because the standalone movie that it was supposed to be did so well.
Exactly.
And so now you start getting I think that's where you run into danger with sequels when you can tell a sequel's going to stink was the original really successful and a standalone movie? Because if it was, you're really getting into some dangerous area with sequels. Because now it's like, oh shit, this made money, therefore we need to make another one.
Capitalize.
Yeah, exactly.
Start printing those movies out.
And then it becomes a less sincere effort. I feel like, certainly artistically.
Absolutely.
We all saw Speed and then Speed 2 Cruise Control. We know.
It's like. Originality is not gone, that's for sure. That's the one thing I left the theater thinking is like, wow, that was a pretty original film. I'm glad I saw it. I compared it to Gladiator and Apocalypto earlier.
Right.
I mean, Apocalypto more like stylistically and how violent the film is because it's very, very graphic. Gladiator in the sense that it's a revenge thriller that's a sword and sandals film.
Right.
But it's I think that's also a movie making trope that's been around since forever. The 50s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Spartacus.
Spartacus, exactly. Spartacus is a good comparison, actually. And so it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel, but it's adding elements that we haven't seen before. I think with Eggers, obviously, The Witch is a very out there film. It's very very slow. It's kind of a slow burn, and this kind of has the same DNA as that. I mean, obviously, the same filmmaker. While having a splash of The Lighthouse in it as well. I love The Lighthouse, but it's also a very strange film. Where those two films, I think the strangeness works is because they're horror films.
Right.
They're surrealist. This is like a straight-up revenge thriller. So it kind of... I sound like I don't like the film, but I do like it.
Sure.
It just kind of works to like a varying degree. I think it's his third best film. I actually, I'd probably rather watch it than The Witch. Just because The Witch is so slow. I love The Witch. I watch it every Halloween, but I think I'd rather watch this than The Witch like right now.
Sure. Well, and you kind of made the point of your feelings over it evolved the more you processed it later.
It is growing on me. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, that was really good. You know?
I think, movies, for me, I do that a lot with. I'll walk out of the theater unsure or feeling a certain way about a movie, and then the more I process it in my head, like there have been movies I've watched, I'm like, that was okay. Yeah. And then the later I'm like, wait a second. No, that wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, I start getting irritated. Like, I can't believe I just watched that piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And walked out of the theater feeling like it was fine.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, relatively, the first time I saw Point Break on DVD.
Yeah.
The original Point Break, right? Yeah. And I watched it thinking, that was a pretty good movie. And I didn't realize until a couple days later, it's like, I don't care if I ever see that movie again or think about it again.
I love Point Break.
And again, I watched it, didn't hate it, but I'm like, that. Not until I processed it for a little while, then I realized, wait, that wasn't that great of a movie.
What was Gary Busey doing?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, it's a pretty.
It's a silly action.
For sure. It's not great.
The FBI is going to teach me to surf. I mean...
I just love it when he's, like, shooting his gun into the air. I mean, I think Hot Fuzz parodies that very well.
Incredibly well. As soon as you said that, I thought Hot Fuzz.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of the movie's legacy at this point. It got a shitty remake. Did you see the remake?
I didn't, but I heard nothing but terrible things about it.
Wow. It makes the first movie look like Citizen Kane.
So that good, huh?
Yeah, it's a winner.
Yeah. So, no, I think you hit the nail right on the head there in that... I think it's great when you can watch a movie, walk out of it, and then say, I need to think about and process that for a while before I really know how to feel about that. And Pulp Fiction, when I first saw it, did that to me. I had to think about Pulp Fiction a while.
And I think a part of that is expectation. I knew it was going to be different because of Eggers, but do not go into this movie thinking it's going to be Troy or 300 or Gladiator. Right, I mean, like, there are moments where, like, low-key, where you are kind of like amped up by some of the stuff that happens because he's like a super intense like Jack guy.
Sure, yeah.
Like,
we've all seen the trailers, right?
Yeah, and he's getting his vengeance, and you're like, yeah, and then like it kind of comes to a screeching halt. It becomes more of a think piece and more scheming and like, kind of like the Count of Monte Cristo. That'd be kind of a cool comparison. That's not really spoiling the film, but there's aspects of the movie where he is taking more of a slow burn to his revenge, and it's.
A Hamlet style, taking the slow.
His name is Amleth in the film.
Sure. Okay.
And that's not the only comparison to Hamlet there is. I don't want to spoil the film, but it's very well acted.
The cast is loaded.
Nicole Kidman is fantastic in this movie. She's not in it very much, but she's in it, and she's like honestly kind of stole the movie.
Isn't Anna Taylor-Joy in it too?
She is very good in this film as well.
Great actress.
Fantastic actress. Alexander Skarsgård. Why is he not in more movies?
I don't know. He's a handsome guy and a talented guy.
People say that he's not charismatic, but I mean, he's a fantastic actor. I've loved him ever since True Blood. I don't know if you guys have seen True Blood, but that's a fantastic TV show.
I just feel like he's not charismatic. Well, I don't feel like he's gotten scripts for charismatic characters.
I mean,
did you see the Straw Dogs remake? Oh, he was a monster in that. Of course,
man, that was a really bad movie.
Terrible.
Shout out to the original Straw Dogs. I love
it.
Peckinpah is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, it was a great performance from
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah. No, the original was a great movie. The James Marsden remake was
so bad,
not good at all.
Yeah, I kind of forgot he was in that movie. I mean, it's funny to think that his first film performance was one of the friends in Zoolander.
Was he?
He was one of the friends that dies in the gasoline fight in Zoolander.
Oh yeah. Was it like Wham they were listening to while they were smoking cigarettes and spraying each other?
Was that what it was? Yeah.
I think it was I could be wrong. I think it was like Wake Me Up Before You Go.
I think it was. Yeah, okay. I think you're right. Yeah. But that was his first acting debut was in Zoolander. Now here he is murdering people as a Viking in the Northman. So quite the career.
Was that Skarsgård? I was talking about James Marsden.
No, Skarsgård was in Zoolander.
Oh, no kidding. I thought you were talking about Marsden.
No. Marsden. I think he goes back to like the late 80s.
Because he was doing the X-Men for a while.
Well, even before that. Well, maybe it was like mid-90s, but he was like a teen heartthrob.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. That is a very handsome man.
He's a very handsome man, yeah.
And where I really decided I like James Marsden was between 30 Rock and Westworld. 30
Rock is something that you're always quoting 30 Rock, and I need to get on that train.
I love me some 30 Rock.
I like Alec Baldwin and Tina Fey, so I might as well hop on it, But yeah, so that's The Northman. I suggest you guys check it out. But, if you want to go see any other two films that are out right now, go see it. If you can see Ambulance, go see Ambulance, please.
Sure, if you can find a place that's still showing it.
I don't know why I'm dying on the Michael Bay hill.
Well, I'm dying. I haven't seen it, and that's kind of on me. I should have in theaters. It's just hard to find the time for everything.
Sure, and it's crazy to think that it only made $8 million.
See, and that pisses me off because again, you have this. What was it, like a $50 million budget?
$50 million budget, which is relatively cheap.
That's what you want. That's what, for you guys saying you need to support something besides the huge budget, Marvel movies and those sequel properties. That would have been a great one to do it with. Sure. You would have still had a good time. I should have found the time to go.
Guys, we're going to see Doctor Strange. Don't worry. We like Marvel.
Oh, yeah. We're not knocking Marvel. We're just we're answering speaking to the criticism people have of, oh my God, all the movie theaters are just Marvel movies. Well, that's not true. If we would all kind of make the effort, some effort, to at least to go see.
And right now, it's a pretty. This is it right now. It's now or never, because there are things out right now for us to see.
Before Marvel starts filling up, and other DCU and other properties,
don't go see Sonic the Hedgehog for 15 times. See it a couple times if you really want to, and then go see one of these movies, please.
Right, yeah.
We don't need more Sonic. Speaking of James Morrison, we don't need more Sonic. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Jim Carrey's had enough with Sonic.
Right. there's a reason Michael Bay made this instead of yet another Transformers movie.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like, franchise fatigue is real, and I
have franchise fatigue. Right, I do too.
My favorite franchise is James Bond. It's been around for 60 years. Right. And that's franchise fatigue out the ass. And I still want to see original properties.
Sure, absolutely.
And, kind of an awkward transition here. We kind of want to talk about, your next pick, which is going to be not a franchise whatsoever.
No. I finally, and it wasn't until after the Oscars, I finally watched CODA. I watched the Oscars with friends. CODA won. It was one of the few I hadn't seen. I was honestly pulling for a number of the other movies. I thought Licorice Pizza was fantastic. I thought Dune was fantastic. Nightmare Alley, and oh my God, I totally just lost it. Oh, did I say Licorice Pizza?
You did.
Okay, so
well, King Richard is also nominated. Why am I blanking now too?
Oh, Power of the Dog. Power of the Dog was the other one. So those four was like any one of those four
streaming service,
right? Any one of those four, I'll be incredibly happy with. Right?
Isn't it kind of funny that Apple TV Plus won an Oscar before Netflix did?
Yeah. And Netflix has had some really good movies, starting with Roma.
But also, it's just funny to think that now all the Best Picture winners are going to be streaming.
They're all going to be streaming, yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, like it's kind of interesting that we're talking about movies dying in the theater, yet
they're alive and well.
They're alive and well on streaming.
Right.
So maybe not so much.
When I watched the Oscars and it won, I obviously had no opinion because I hadn't seen it, but the friends I watched it with were disappointed. I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, I watched CODA. They described it as fine, but definitely not a great movie. They called it Oscar bait, right? And I'm like, oh, okay. There's a lot of Oscar bait movies that are decent, and sometimes I thought, no, they're better than that, and sometimes they didn't even rise to that. So I was, I went in a little skeptical to CODA, and I have to say, I enjoyed CODA. I think CODA is a fine movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were some really, really good performances in it, more than one. There were a couple of really bad performances in it, too. And I felt like it was nowhere worthy of an Oscar nomination, let alone a Best Picture win.
I liked it a lot.
I liked it. I liked it. But, I like a lot of movies. I wouldn't say throw an Oscar at that movie,
Sure. And is it because it was nominated and even won Best Picture is why you kind of look at it a different way?
It might be. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if I would have watched it 6 months ago, it would have been a small film that I would have watched and enjoyed. And like, okay, that was
probably rewatched down the road.
That was right. That's a cool movie, and gone on with my life, and never thought about it again.
Sure.
The fact that it won the Oscar, though, is like, well, now I have to hold it to a higher standard.
It is a little absurd, isn't it?
Yeah. Once you start heaping that level of praise, right? Once the Hollywood community's consensus is this is the best movie made this year, now you have some expectations watching it, and I had some problems. With CODA as a movie. One, it was, with the exception of the use of deaf people as the character base, it wasn't original in any way. It was very formulaic and very predictable.
Very much so.
Not every movie has to be surprising. They don't all have to be Tarantino movies, which surprise the shit out of you every time you watch them.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm watching they perform the first concert that the girl does, right? And her family's sitting there and they can't hear it, so they're like discussing dinner and grocery lists and stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
I thought it was too. But everything was so predictable. I was like, okay, when is she going to start signing this so that her parents could get engaged? Oh, wait, she saves it till the end, till she does the audition. There's a very and it's supposed to be a really big emotional moment, but am I the only one that saw it coming a mile away?
I think it's kind of I think that's what makes the movie what made the movie blow up, what people like so much about it, is the ending.
But it was so predictable.
I know, but even like not even that bit where she's singing for them,
right?
When he tells her to go.
But didn't you see that coming?
Yeah.
A mile.
Oh yeah, it still got me. It still got me, and I was mad that it got me. I was like, damn it!
It didn't. It was well acted. The guy who played the dad, I'm forgetting his name right now.
Troy Kotsur.
Yeah, he was freaking great in that movie.
He deserved the Oscar. Great speech too.
But he was the only character that I felt like had any depth. Mm-hmm. Everyone else, it was like every other character
had a little bit of depth.
A little bit. Yeah. Almost everyone else was a stereotype for the whole movie, which bothered me.
The jealous brother. All that.
The jealous brother, the bitchy high school rival girl, I want to date you, but I don't want to date you, but I can't date you because you're not cool enough. Fuck it, I love you, boy.
Yeah.
I mean, when the high school teacher, who, by the way, was also just a fucking trope of every high school music teacher or drama teacher in the history of movies and television.
I thought he was very annoying.
And he was terribly written and drawn, and the performance didn't do it any favors. But the simple fact that he's like, you girl who doesn't really sing that beautiful voice, and you hot guy she's in love with, I'm going to put you together and have you sing a love duet to each other. Yeah. Oh my God, did we not see this in every high school movie ever made?
Ever. And it's like... It's very conventional, which is kind of
conventional.
So that was the last film that I watched for my Oscar Oscar watch. So I wonder if it was just because I was so tired. I don't want to say tired's a word, but like I had just trudged through all.
You did the homework.
These biopics, homework, and then these incredibly dramatic and sad films, and then I got to CODA, and I was like, that was nice. It was very conventional. It was just it felt like a break, and so maybe that's why I think on Letterboxd I said, "Fuck it, let it win."
Right.
Because at that point, like, it had enough steam when I finally saw it. I was like, this is going to win Best Picture. I got to watch it. And I was like, yeah, fuck it. Let it win.
Right. And again, I didn't hate the movie. I sound like I'm hating the movie. I'm not. What I'm doing is nitpicking on why I don't think it was the Best Picture.
It also looked, the way it looked like a TV movie.
It felt like a TV movie. It did. It looked and felt like a TV movie.
And, it's the same thing with, like, movies like Joker or Green Book,
which I hated, yeah.
Yeah, it's like these movies that are good movies that are like, winning Best Picture. Joker didn't win Best Picture, but it was nominated for like 10 Oscars, which is insane. But these movies that get all these nominations and go on to win Best Picture, it kind of dampens the legacy a little bit.
See, that's what I feel like too.
Yeah.
And if you were to say, do people, so you didn't like CODA. No, I did like CODA. Yeah. But I promise you, there were half a dozen other movies I saw last year that were unquestionably significantly better films than CODA.
Absolutely.
In terms of how they're shot and the quality. I mean, you want to compare the screenplay of CODA and like Licorice Pizza?
Or even Nightmare Alley.
Or Nightmare Alley.
I thought Nightmare Alley was incredible. Go, guys, it's on Hulu and HBO Max. If you have not seen Nightmare Alley, give it a shot. It's pretty incredible.
I mean, you can't watch CODA.
Nobody saw that either. That's the movie that went to theaters and nobody saw.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't watch CODA and Dune and say CODA's the better movie between those two movies.
Yeah, Dune is incredible.
Yeah, just visually.
I have a hot take about Dune, though. I think Blade Runner 2049 is better.
Hey, I don't think that's unreasonable. Blade Runner 2049 is an underappreciated movie.
But no, I agree. And CODA, we'll see what the legacy is in 30 years. I feel like this is going to be like the year 1980 when Ordinary People beat Raging Bull.
And everyone knows now, right?
Yeah, Ordinary People is a great movie. I'm not knocking Ordinary People. I do love it, but Raging Bull.
We have a number of these throughout recent history, right?
Yeah.
Nobody still thinks that Shakespeare in Love was the best movie over Saving Private Ryan.
I think Shakespeare in Love is a good movie, but
it's a good movie, but it wasn't the best movie.
No,
we all remember Crash winning over Brokeback Mountain, and everyone's like, "How the fuck did we let that happen?" And Green Book, yeah. There's a reason that Spike Lee got up and walked out of the theater when Green Book won.
Yeah,
because it shouldn't have. Because it was
2018 was a rough year, but yeah, Green Book was not a good.
Green Book was the worst of the nominees.
Was that the year that Bohemian Rhapsody also came out and that won a shitload of Oscars for some reason?
I think so.
Yeah, Rami Malek should not have won that year either.
No, not when he was doing a caricature performance.
But also, this kind of speaks to like the Academy itself. I feel like people don't ever remember the movies that won. They remember the movies that were nominated. Like, with the exception of like The Godfather, Godfather 2. I mean,
unless you have the Towering movie.
Sure.
When Daniel Day-Lewis is up for Best Actor for There Will Be Blood,
or like
does anyone give a shit
No
about
Country
the others?
Won that year. Like, we're good with No Country.
Does anyone care about the other nominees when you have something that's that obvious?
Sure. But and like even like a year like 94, we talk about this all the time.
Right.
94 is like the most controversial year because it's like
the Forrest Gump year.
The Forrest Gump year, which I love. I think everybody for the most part likes Forrest Gump. Even if you think it's a bad movie, it's still entertaining as hell.
I like Forrest Gump, absolutely.
If you don't like Forrest Gump, you don't have heart. But
it is melodramatic and right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But Shawshank or like Pulp Fiction, those two
definitely stood up a lot better through time.
We're still referencing Pulp Fiction today. Like, you can watch Pulp Fiction today and be like, that's the coolest movie ever made.
Right.
You know, and Shawshank Redemption, like, that's an incredible piece of filmmaking. Like, it's like one of the greatest films of all time. So, right. Yeah, I mean, the Academy does this shit just to, like, not play favorites, I feel like. They're like, we're just going to pick a movie, and that's the one
that's the one we're all going to say we're all going to get behind it.
Yeah.
The reason Green Book pisses everybody off is because that was the safest pat myself on the back for being a white person who doesn't openly say I hate black people movie ever made.
Yeah.
As I was telling Joe, I read a review, and I think it was LA Times, but I could be wrong. But I thought on Rotten Tomatoes, I thought it was spot on. It's the I have a black friend of movies.
It's so true.
Because it is puddle deep.
It's so bad.
I hated it.
It's kind of fucked up because that's Hollywood trying to capitalize, because that was, what, 2 years after Moonlight.
Hollywood's so White and everything.
Well, that was 2015, I believe.
Oh, right.
But Moonlight won. Moonlight was an incredible film. A great film.
Movie.
It even had Mahershala Ali in it. It just seems like they're trying to capitalize on it. And it's like, you can't do that, you know? Like, you can't do that. It's literally Hollywood.
Especially with such a poorly written movie.
Yeah, and I think that's... was. You know, and honestly, like, all those movies obviously went to theaters. That was kind of like pre-streaming. I wonder if, like, mainstream audiences and general audiences see that and they're like, you know what? I don't want to go see this shit.
Right.
And so they're just going to sit at home and watch it now, because I'm not going to go pay for that in a theater. Which good on you. Like, I wouldn't want to go pay for Green Book.
I did not pay to watch Green Book.
I don't think I did either. I think I watched it online, honestly.
This was pre-pandemic, so I did a crazy thing and rented it on DVD and watched
it. I was talking to somebody the other day at work. Redbox was a big thing before streaming was everywhere. I used to Redbox all the time, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. To tie things back up, I mean, is there anything else you want to talk about, CODA? Anything else?
No, like I said, I don't want anyone sitting watching this saying this asshole hated CODA, because I didn't. I just don't think it was the best picture. I feel like it lacked depth.
It did lack depth. It really did.
But that's just me. I thought it was a good movie, maybe one of the top 10 of the year. Definitely not top 5. Definitely not best picture.
And if it's any consolation, guys, it made me cry.
I didn't cry, but I
hated that it made me cry.
But there were definitely times I'm like, oh my god, that was a really good moment, right? There were moments I thought that was a really well done, solid moment.
The parents were the best part of that movie.
They were 100%.
They were the best part of the movie. But yeah, back to Netflix. I was kind of scrolling through Netflix, just kind of. Just looking for something to watch.
Oh yeah, Joe found an old deep cut he hadn't seen before.
Never seen it. So recently I went through like an Indiana Jones, Star Wars phase where I was kind of watching all the classics, and I was looking at like the filmography of Lawrence Kasdan. I'm a big Western guy, and somehow I've never seen Silverado.
Joe had never seen Silverado.
I'm sure half the people watching this are like, what the fuck is Silverado? Watch Silverado. Silverado was amazing. It's like a perfect Western, but
it's a perfect 90s Western with a loaded cast.
It was like 85, I think.
Oh, it was the 80s?
Yeah, it's like the 80s even. I mean, because it's got like, this movie has everything, guys. It's got freaking all like the archetypes of like a classic Western film. It's got like lone fucking not lone rangers, because they're not rangers. They're like outlaws almost.
Yeah, you got the lone wolf outlaws.
You've Jeff Goldblum.
Right. You've got a quick draw, a dramatic quick draw, shoot off.
It's got more than one like scenario from those movies. Like, so obviously you have the quick draw in the ending, but you also have like the siege of a ranch. You've got revenge. You've got all these things. It's almost like they took like the greatest hits from all these westerns from back in the day and they put it into one fun movie.
It was a blast.
It's a perfect western. Like, legitimately, it was a great movie. Like, Kevin Kline is fantastic in it. Scott Glenn.
I love Scott Glenn.
Was he in like movies? Was he like a star?
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen. There was a movie called My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys that was a pretty big starring vehicle for him in the 90s, I think. But other than that, I don't know that I've ever seen him in a star role. Backdraft, he had a supporting role that was pretty important.
I think the first time I ever saw Scott Glenn was like Training Day.
Oh my god, the John Travolta Mechanical Bull one. Urban Cowboy.
Oh, he's an Urban Cowboy?
I think he's the villain in Urban Cowboy.
Okay,
back in the early 80s. But yeah, he's done a whole lot of movies. Obviously, Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's the FBI agent.
The FBI director.
But yeah, I was kind of surprised to see that he's basically the star in that movie. You know, Silverado. I mean, I guess
I think
Kevin Kline.
Yeah, him or Kline to the lead, sure. Again, it's a huge ensemble movie.
Yeah, Costner's in it. Kevin Costner's not his first film, but
one of his earlier ones for sure.
Yeah, he. I was surprised to see that he wasn't the badass in this movie. Like, he was cool, he had badass moments, but he was like a kid, basically.
Right.
He was playing like a very immature kid, and he's also the comic relief, which is weird to see Kevin Costner as comic relief.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like that'd be something that fills out his resume usually.
No, not at all. And so it was just fun to like watch this movie because it was a great send up to like old adventure action films, which we don't really have that anymore right now. Marvel,
right? Well, it was nice. It's nice to watch a movie like that because I'm with you on this.
Yeah,
where it's a huge like action adventure movie that has zero special effects.
Yeah,
I love the fact that there are no there are just a million stuntmen.
They're just in, I think it's New Mexico.
Yeah,
where they shot it. You know, the winter in New Mexico, they built all these like sets, so the western town looks really cool.
It's 100 because of the time period. It's 100% practical.
Lots of like jumping onto horses and jumping off of horses, and lots of trampling of horses. Like, people get trampled by horses several times in the film.
Huge stunt crew of talented people for sure.
And it's like one of my favorite movies of all time is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And there's that bit where Eastwood's shooting the hats off of people, and you can clearly see the hats getting like pulled off of them. You know, they have a bit like that in this movie. They do.
John Cleese.
John Cleese. Oh yes, as the sheriff. Yeah. I don't much like that word. Yeah. Danny Glover's in this movie as well. Pre-Lethal Weapon. You know.
Jeff was I right? I told you before you watched it. Was Jeff Goldblum a pimp, as I recall, or did I get that wrong?
It's ambiguous. He's a player. He's like, I'm a gambler in this town, and he's always with Danny Glover's sister, who is also like a lady of the night in the film.
Right.
And so it's kind of implied that he's her pimp.
Gotcha.
And it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum. I was like, oh my god, Jeff Goldblum's in this movie. Like, literally, this movie has everything, and it's. I think it's coming off Netflix very soon. This is a very streamer-heavy pod today, but please watch Silverado before it comes off of Netflix. I think that movie is like a lost gem.
I agree.
Because I had never heard of it until like a couple months ago. Literally, I was watching like Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I was kind of like, Lawrence Kasdan wrote this. He also wrote Solo. He wrote the Indiana Jones films.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, what else has he done? Lots of movies with Kevin Kline.
Yeah. You're saying that, yeah.
French Kiss is one that I used to watch as a kid all the time with my mom. Meg Ryan and Kevin Kline. Kevin Kline plays a Frenchman.
Yeah.
It's very funny.
Well, I mean, Silverado is a movie I saw a couple times when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I loved it. Yeah. So it's a movie that, like, it stands up, right? You see a lot of movies as a kid, and you see them as an adult, you're like, oh my god, my taste was shit.
Yeah.
But this is a movie that's actually just a good movie, but it's very fun and very engaging, too.
Yeah, it fits very well in those 80s action romps. Like, you could watch it with a double feature with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I agree.
100%. Yeah. And, I mean, guys, you need to check it out because it's going to blow your mind. If you like Westerns. Because if you do not like Westerns...
It's very much in Western, steeped in Western tropes and Western history.
100%.
If you hate Westerns, I would say you probably won't care that much for it.
I think with Westerns, a lot of the main critique is that they're kind of like paced very slow.
Sure.
And like they are problematic. This film takes a less problematic approach. I mean, usually in the Western films, the sheriff is the hero. They flip it. And this movie, the laws are the bad guys in this movie.
Right. And that's not spoiling anything. It's very clear from the beginning.
Yeah, like they're just kind of like...
with the great Brian Dennehy.
Oh, he's so
Rest
good.
in peace. Yeah.
R.I.P. Yeah, man, I love Brian Dennehy. He's amazing in this movie. But yeah, like they're not lone... What would you call them? They're just drifters.
Yeah.
They're all just kind of drifting along, minding their own business.
Yeah, they all end up circumstances kind of throw them together, Magnificent Seven style.
It's very much like that Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily like, I mean, I guess you can say they're trying to save a town.
Right.
I don't want to spoil
That's where they end up. They all have their own motives, but they're not selfish motives. They're reasonable motives.
No, and it's like...
for coming together, yeah.
It's the kind of movie that I wish they would make today, because Westerns today are definitely like the straight-to-DVD.
Of course.
The shitty Scott Eastwood movies, and... I don't know. The Westerns have always been a genre that are close to my heart. Growing up in Kansas, we have nothing but open plains and cows here, so it's...
We do have cows.
It's fun escapism. Good old-fashioned American filmmaking.
Right.
But, do you have a favorite Western?
My favorite Western, and I know this is very cliche, is High Noon. I thought about this for a while. Unforgiven is very high on my list.
I think Unforgiven is like the undisputed king.
It's a great Western. It's a great Western.
My favorite, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a great movie.
Yeah.
You can find Eastwood in a number of them.
We talked about Peckinpah earlier, Straw Dogs. Peckinpah's great for Westerns too.
The Wild Bunch. Yeah. Is a great movie.
If you guys can find it, there's a couple different versions, but he made a movie called Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. and they cut it up. The studio took it from and cut it up. But there's 2 versions online. I think Amazon has the theatrical cut,
sure,
like the director's cuts on YouTube. But that's a fantastic movie as well.
And anyone who's a DC fan knows that if you let a studio cut up a director's movie, they can really do some damage.
Yeah, that was his last Western too. After that, he was done with Westerns, so it's kind of sad, you know. Yeah. But that movie is responsible for the Bob Dylan song "Knocking on Heaven's Door." Mm-hmm. That was made for that film. So
no kidding.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, yeah, Western. I think Westerns are a great genre. I love that Tombstone kind of brought him back into vogue a little bit.
Tombstone, man.
They were dead for a while. Like in the 70s and into the 80s, they were dead.
They kind of had a comeback there in the aughts, in the 2000s.
Yeah, they did, but they were dead for a long time. I think Unforgiven kind of came out of nowhere, like, oh my God, someone made a really good Western. Because we had Young Guns in the 80s, but that was a piece of shit.
Yeah, you had like Young Guns, Pale Rider, Silverado.
Yeah, you had some.
Eastwood was hanging in there.
Right, yeah, he was hanging with Pale Rider in the 80s, yeah.
What is the last great Western we've had? Has there been anything out recently that was a Western?
After Unforgiven and Tombstone, those two were pretty close to each other timeline-wise.
Well, I guess like No Country, that was 2007. And we
had but even that would be a traditional Western.
No, I guess Assassination of Jesse James.
That was a good movie.
But
it was also super long and super artistic and Western fan. You know,
it's a revisionist Western,
right? And as you can tell from Sam Elliott, a lot of people don't consider Power of the Dog to be a Western.
I know that was very problematic, but that video of him
losing it
was kind of funny. I enjoyed that. I liked Power of the Dog. I'm not agreeing with Sam
Elliott. I love Power of the Dog.
I just like hearing old Western men lose their shit.
Yeah.
Fuck no, that piece of shit.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, I like Power of the Dog a lot, but you know, I don't agree with Sam Elliott at all. I thought it was definitely a Western. I thought it was a great movie.
It was great.
But it's certainly a new kind of Western, like a neo-Western.
It would be like a revisionist film.
Yeah.
A revisionist Western, yeah.
So as far as the traditional Western movie,
it's not John Wayne.
I think the remake of The Magnificent Seven is the last one I can think of even existing. And that wasn't good.
I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it, but it wasn't great.
It definitely wasn't the original.
No. I guess, okay, so bringing up Power of the Dog again, it kind of did feel like in some strange sense, like an old John Ford film in some ways, you know?
Sure.
I wonder if she did study those older Western archetypes, and then she kind of obviously...
Definitely flipped them on their head, for sure.
For sure, yeah, it's not... Yeah, can you imagine John Wayne seeing this movie?
John Wayne was trying to beat that Indian woman up at the Oscars.
Yeah, John Wayne would have a heart attack.
Right, yeah. And that's not to say we agree with them. It's just it's a different kind of Western.
Yeah, 100%, which is good. I mean, like that's
shit needs to evolve.
Yeah, like we talked about earlier with the Northman. It needs to these types of movies that have been around forever need to to change.
Right. You know, I enjoyed Power of the Dog a lot, but I didn't look at it as traditional Western because it wasn't a shoot 'em up kind of Western, and I do have a soft spot for the old classic shoot 'em up style of Westerns.
Sometimes you just want to get a beer, a glass of whiskey.
Right,
in the afternoon, the sun's going down,
and watch an asshole like John Wayne shoot up a town.
Yeah, simple times. Alrighty, well, guys, I think we've overstayed our welcome today. Go see a movie. Go to the theater, please, please, please. Go to the theater. Watch one of these new movies that are out.
Yeah, there's a lot of good choices right now, I feel like.
And on the flip side, stream Better Call Saul. Definitely use your streaming service, but go to the movies, please.
Yeah, do both. You're paying for the streaming service, use it, but don't abandon the theater completely would be my suggestion.
Michael Bay is very disappointed in you.
And nothing feels worse than the guy who made Pearl Harbor being very disappointed in you.
That's true.
Roland Emmerich is very disappointed in you. And he hasn't made a good movie since... Roland Emmerich, I don't know, has made a good movie.
Yeah, I fucking hate Independence Day.
I do.
All right, guys. Take care. Go watch a movie.
Yeah.